Hi, welcome to Quirky Queen's Journals. My name's Kirsten. So today I am using a sunflower bunch stencil from pmartiststudio. So I watch quite a lot of their live streams and I had purchased square stencils and circle stencils from them. They sent me some stencils as extras that are what they call imperfectly perfect, as in they're not suitable to sell. But I could still make use of them and sort of use them to advertise their stencils if I wanted to. So I love this stencil. I mean, even just sitting there with the stencil on it, it's lovely. Anyway, I'll link them in the description box, their website, and you can go on and have a look. I am using this stencil today, and what I'm doing is I'm going to use different mediums. So we're starting off with heavy body yellow ochre paint, and then I put some high flow burnt sienna paint. High flow is a bit more like acrylic inks. But I had a bit of a disaster. The yellow ochre took too long, so the yellow ochre just dried completely on the gel plate. So we've got some brown centres, which look very interesting. Now, what I picked the stencil up from the gel plate with is a scoring tool. And they've got little balls on the end of the pointy metal bits. And I got 3 of them for £2 in the range. And it is one of the best tools that I have. I think I use it. Everything I do arty-wise, that gets used at some point. So that was silver metallic heavy body paint that I put on. I was trying to find something to pull the yellow ochre up without sort of disguising the colour too much. I wanted the yellow ochre to be the colour. And it's fabulous. I think the high flow paint texture and the heavy body paint texture works really well together. So here it is here. Next, pan pastels. Do you know, this is the best use I've found for these. They were a very expensive purchase, but with these stencils, they're actually very good. You know, these thin, flexible stencils. And they're good at getting in all the nooks and crannies. This is yellow ochre colour as well I'm using. I have a brown, I think it's raw umber. Maybe. I might be making it up, that's what it's called. Anyway, I thought it would be interesting to see the variety in the pictures that we can achieve using different mediums. So I've used the heavy body paint with high flow in the centre so we can see a bit of difference in the texture. We're using the pan pastels this time. We're going to use fluid acrylic paints, oil pastels, and something alcohol markers. They were my favourite to use on it, to be fair. I used alcohol markers with small, rubbing alcohol dropped into it as well. I've always loved sunflowers, and I don't know whether or not it's the association with Van Gogh, because when I was a child, I remember having a t-shirt with the picture of the sunflowers that he painted on it, and I just really loved it. So you can see there that with the pan pastels, you've managed to get a bit of sort of blending of the brown and the yellow together, which does make it look a bit more natural. I just use the silver paint for all the pulls, so that it is kind of consistent, the paint we're using to pull it with, but also I like the fact that it doesn't overly disguise the colour, or it's also not too shiny for a metallic paint. So people have lots of different methods for lifting off the gel plate. I'm a bit impatient, so I tend to use really quite thin layers of paint. And also because they're pan pastels, so they're kind of dry immediately, you know, it doesn't take too long for it to be ready to pull off. I mean, generally most of these were within a minute or two. My hands are covered in paint, but I've been doing lots of painting today and they're kind of, it's hard to wash it all off in one go. So I'm going to do another one with the pan pastels, but this time I'm going to have more of it coming out round the outside. So I'm going to be a bit messier in the way that I'm applying it to the stencil. I just thought that if I had some coming out outside of the stencil and kind of blended away, that it would give the illusion more of it being a larger bunch. You know, the way that you would get in some paintings where the sort of more background flowers would be disappearing. You wouldn't really get the full detail. That's the look I was going for here. I'm not sure I achieved it, but I do think that having the yellow coming round the outside as well was, I think it did enhance it. It maybe enhanced the detail. And we're experimenting. We need to try different things. I will say that whoever designed that stencil, it's spot on. It's lovely. I have one that Froyle Davies from Froyle Art designed, which I'm excited for. And I have a little tiny one that Kerry Griffiths from Kerry Creative Designs designed. So I'll experiment with them as well and give you my conclusion, my opinion. I think this one's nice. It's got the right balance of intricacy to give the detail, but it's still it's very simple design, and it just works so well. I just think it's lovely. If I was making junk journal pages, I think as well with the sunflower effect, it would give nice muted pages. If you put that onto the junk journal, it would give the muted look to it and the kind of vintage. Do you know, when I was growing up, we had bright orange sunflower curtains in our dining room. They were dark brown and they were bright orange. And when I was young, I was so embarrassed by them. But, I wish I had those curtains now. I love them. I don't even know, would I use them as curtains or would I cut them up? Oh, I don't know. That's a hard decision to make. So I liked it coming out the edges, but I'd went round the edges with a napkin, and the napkin had baby oil on it. So I've actually made the edges a little bit harsh in the middle. But that's okay, I'll know for next time. Just leave it alone. Anyway, the pan pastels comes off very easily with baby oil, as you can see there. So out of everything I used, these were my favourites. Oh, they were so good. And I wonder if, a lot of people have alcohol ink in bottles. I wonder if it would have worked so well. I think the markers helps you, it helps you disperse it better in smaller areas. You've got more control over it with the markers. And plus I get 80 markers for, now I think it was £18. It was between £15 and £20 on Amazon. So I've put 3 colours in the middle. And I just do 1 or 2 on the outside, I think. You kind of want the brown to look a bit bulkier, but the petals to look a bit smoother and a bit more delicate, I suppose. I think a lot of what gives the sunflower its look is the big brown part in the middle. So now I'm going to add in some of the rubbing alcohol. So it's just the stuff that you clean your hands with. It's very liquidy, and I'm literally just dipping a paintbrush in it and then adding it into the circles, and it's creating this lovely movement and, you know, lines where the alcohol inks, the different colours of alcohol inks meet each other. And I just think it's lovely. So I'm definitely going to be doing more work with them. So it was a bit more laborious filling in the petals with the alcohol marker, but it was worth it. And also you don't need to be overly, pedantic about it, because I'm going to put in some of the rubbing alcohol with the paintbrush, so that helps the alcohol ink from the marker move into the nooks and crannies. So it's more about just getting some colour in the petals to begin with. I don't know if I'd ever want to use another stencil, to be honest with you. I just think that I'd be content with this one. It's a beautiful design. But I do love sunflowers. They're probably... Are they my favourite flower? I mean, it depends. I think they're my favourite flower to kind of look at and draw, and it's probably the symbolism from my childhood, to be honest with you, that I like them for. And they're just so 1970s, their colours, aren't they? They're that kind of cool retro symbol. It might look tedious filling in the petals with the alcohol marker and then going over it with the paintbrush with the rubbing alcohol on it. But actually, it's very relaxing. Do you know, it's probably like colouring in with 3D. I'm colouring in a 3D picture instead of a 2D picture. And it's very easy just to add the alcohol in as well. I think you do need a stencil that sticks to your gel plate though, because you do need to keep, obviously, the petal alcohol inks and the centre alcohol inks separate. Although I suppose if it didn't stick quite as well to the gel plate, you would just wait until one section's dry before you did the other section, maybe. You probably wouldn't get the clarity of line around the edges. These also dry very quickly, and they do give you texture and detail with very little effort on your part. I'm also trying to keep, like, whatever I was using to apply the colour with in each of the different mediums, I do try and go in the direction of the petals. I don't know if that's necessary, but I just like to do that. See how lovely that looks? You don't see the yellow as well. It's quite a pale yellow. The marker's called dark yellow, but it obviously looks quite pale on the gel plate. I do think you get a delicateness with the alcohol inks that's hard to get with other mediums. Now, I find fluid acrylic paints work really well for some things, and other things I just find them irritating. But for this, they were wonderful. I started off with one of those sword paintbrushes. I thought that would be good to do the thicker and thinner parts of the petals, but it wasn't. It was just messy. But I swap it out for another paintbrush and it goes on very easily after that. But on this stencil, the fluid acrylic paints were amazing because they gave me texture. And I was able to spread them out quite thinly in the petals in a way that when I use the heavy body paints on the gel plate, I have to wait a long time for that to dry. Because it's hard to get a very thin layer with just a paintbrush with the heavy bodies. Whereas here, because the fluid acrylic paints dry so quickly, they just... I didn't have to wait around for them, but see the texture that it's creating. You wouldn't get that variety with the heavy body because with the heavy body in such a small area, you probably would have the same level of thickness throughout. But whereas in the very small area, you can still get thinner and thicker bits of the fluid acrylic paint. I hope that makes sense, but I honestly think that they were brilliant on this. And also the fluid paints are really expensive and I'm a bit of a miser, so I prefer to only use them in small areas. See, when I spread them over the whole gel plate in one go, it makes me kind of, that's about 50 pence on that plate. It makes me go all stingy and miserly. Do you know what I'm thinking? See if I just let that dry, could I have went over it again with another colour? I didn't really have another yellow-orange colour, to be honest with you. So I'm putting burnt sienna in the middle. And actually I'm only using one colour in the middle as well, so the texture's having to do all the work here. There is no colour to create the like shading or whatever with. It's all relying on the brush strokes that the paint. I like how the different yellow can just, it gives it a different look. This one's just a bit more joyful looking. The other ones with the yellow ochre type colours were more natural looking. I don't know whether the warmth of your hands helps it adhere to the paper quicker. I don't know. But honestly, but then I did put baby oil on before I started, and that does make a difference. Now the oil pastels, these gave me results I did not expect. I thought I was going to have to put in some work to make these move about the gel plate better, but honestly they were brilliant. They just glided on. So yeah, I'm going to be using a lot more oil pastels on the gel plate. So I'm just warning you in advance. And as well, I've got a great range of colours there. They're Mongaio Galleria. They're considered professional level oil pastels, but they're so much cheaper than other professional oil pastels. I think that whole set cost me £45, about two 3 years ago. They're well used, as you can see. But you can pay like £150 upwards, more than, for oil pastels. So these were great. I will try, I do have like the very cheap ones that are more aimed at the children. I have them as well, so I'll try them on the gel plate too and see what sort of results we get. Yeah, but these were a find. And I know that it looks quite dusty and even, the brown that I've used in the middle on it, but actually on the other side of the gel plate, the part that ends up at the top of the paper does have a lot of texture in it. Oil pastels must be good for your gel plate as well, because they're oily. That one was very dirty. That's the thing, because the lighter colours of the oil pastels, what you do is you kind of lay down the darker colours and then you use the lighter colours to blend with. So the lighter colours do end up quite mucky. And you run out of them faster. You can see the wee tiny bits. When I started doing art, I did everything in oil pastels. They lifted so easily as well. And I'm annoyed at myself because I didn't try and see if I could get ghost prints with the oil pastels. But I will do that in the future. Do you see the level of texture in there? It's lovely. So what I did was I added pan pastels back on top of the oil pastel. Now, there was a couple of reasons behind it. I don't know why I didn't try and take a ghost print of the oil pastels. I mean, that was silly. But what I thought was, if I put the pan pastels on top of the oil pastel kind of base that's there, would I get more pulls of it? Would the oil pastel base and the pan pastel together, would that give a different look to what the final picture is as well? So there was a couple of reasons behind it. So I got this first pull. I do think that it does add some depth to the pan pastel actually being on top of the oil pastel. You can see there the brown just looks a bit darker. But anyway, yeah, so I got this print and then I got 2 ghost prints off it. So I was quite happy with that. But I really wish I'd tried the oil pastels as ghost prints. So got a fair idea what the next video will be about. My hands are just covered. So I just put silver paint straight back down as soon as I'd lifted that one, and we pulled an acceptable ghost print. It was quite faded though. But then that's a look as well. That's a muted look. I've got babe oil everywhere. It's all over the paper. I'm putting the extra effort in as well to give it the best chance to stick to the paper. So this is the last one. I used white heavy body paint just to get the best suction possible on the gel plate from the paint. And this worked out acceptably as well. So this is it. And I just want to say thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope to see you soon and take care. Bye.